All right, good morning, everybody. It's just a little after 11 here, so we will go ahead and get started. My name is Carolyn, and I am with Midwest Manufacturers, and today we have our Workforce Development webinar series. We are going to be discussing registered apprenticeship as a strategy for recruiting and retention, and our presenters are Elena Foshay and Betsy Hill from the City of Duluth Workforce Development. We just want to let you know we are recording this webinar, and I will be sending the recording to you by the end of this week. We also wanted to let you know that Betsy and Elena have mentioned we can either put any comments we have on chat, or you can go ahead and turn on your microphone and ask at any time. So at this point, I will turn it over to these lovely ladies, and we will get started.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us. I see some very familiar faces here, which is good to see. So Betsy and I are excited to talk about apprenticeship. So I'm Elena Foshay, the Director of Workforce Development for the City of Duluth.
And I'm Betsy Hill, and I work with our career pathway programs and adult programs.
And Betsy and I have been participating in a technical assistance cohort with the Department of Labor and Industry. That's part of a statewide initiative to expand apprenticeship across Minnesota, and particularly in industries that don't have a lot of apprenticeship opportunities, and manufacturing is a big one. So this webinar is part of our early work trying to expand apprenticeship in our region and participate in that work statewide. So I am going to share my screen. All right, is everyone seeing it?
Yep.
Excellent. So now I need to make sure I can advance the slides. There we go. So I want to start with just a really quick overview of who we are for those who don't already know. So City of Duluth Workforce Development is part of the state's workforce system. We serve both businesses and employers, as well as job seekers in Duluth and the surrounding area, to try to connect them to each other. We offer a variety of services here in Duluth. We operate the Workforce Center in partnership with a number of other organizations, including JET, or the Northeast Minnesota Office of Job Training, AEOA, and DEED. And through this Workforce Center, we offer virtual services and in-person services that are available to anyone at all. You can come in, you can use our computer lab to look for jobs, get help with your resume, get help applying for unemployment insurance. We can teach you how to use Minnesota Works, which is the state's job bank. We host job fairs. And then individuals who enroll in one of our programs can receive more intensive one-on-one services, as well as tuition assistance to help pay for training, and some support services to help with needs that are related to pursuing training or employment. In terms of employers, the employers are really a key customer of ours, and they are certainly who we are targeting with this work around apprenticeships. So for employers, like I said, we host job fairs, so really try to facilitate opportunities to connect with people who are looking for work, helping them post jobs on Minnesota Works. We host training classes. Betsy has a key role in kind of leading our career pathways work. And through those training classes, we're offering short-term training leading to industry recognized credentials in high demand occupations, and employer partners are really critical there. We invite employers in to hopefully hire students graduating from the class so they can start work as soon as they're done with training. A big focus of our work with employers now is also on retention. Once you've recruited and hired the individual, of course, you want to retain them. And so that, we support training that leads to retention through the talent development program in partnership with JET. We help with things like career pathway mapping, connection to state resources to support expansion, job creation, and training of new or existing workers. And then we also, through the Workforce Board Equity Committee, do a lot of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, helping employers diversify the talent pool that they're reaching to recruit for jobs, and then really create an inclusive workplace that's going to retain workers for the long term. We also convene the Duluth Workforce Development Board, which has 28 members, half of whom represent private businesses. And then we have additional stakeholders who participate in board committees. And our workforce board is very, very active. In total, we've got over 100 businesses and other entities who participate in the board and its committees. And most notable to this group is that one of our committees is a manufacturing working group. And this is a group that's been meeting for more than a year now to really look at what are the workforce needs short and long term for the manufacturing sector, and how can we meet those needs. And AMFA has been a great partner in keeping that committee active and really thinking about what we can do to get more people on a pathway into careers in manufacturing. So that's just a really, really quick overview of what we do. Now I want to hand it over to Betsy to talk about apprenticeship. So Betsy, it's all you.
Thanks, Elena. And just a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. So why are we talking about this, right? What is apprenticeship? And I think we're all pretty familiar with the model based on the construction trades, but really when we look at this definition, it has a broad application in a lot of different manufacturing applications. Certainly you are already training people on the job. There's continuing education that fits into the related instruction piece. And these are practical and conceptual skills that your employees need and are learning. So apprenticeship feels like a really great fit for manufacturing. Elena, if we can go to the next slide. So why talk about it now? You know, it's really feels like a special moment to be focusing on apprenticeship for a variety of reasons. What we know is that the labor market is tight right now based on demographic information. That doesn't look like that will be changing. And so it's really important, as employers are struggling to find qualified applicants, that we look at all available opportunities to connect workers and employers. And we know that there's a skills mismatch often, because when we look at numbers, 38% of Minnesotans have a bachelor's degree or higher. A quarter of Minnesotans are stopping their education at high school. But we know that most, especially living wage jobs, require some additional post-secondary training or skill development. And apprenticeship can be a really great fit for that. The nationwide focus on apprenticeship is part of the big conversations that are happening now. And as Elena mentioned, we're part of a statewide group that is really focusing on how workforce boards and other entities that are working in workforce development can help bring together employers and the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry to help make apprenticeship an opportunity to capture workers. We know that the components of apprenticeship are very clear, but sometimes can be confusing. And I think it's important to really make sure we're starting with employers at the beginning. As Elena mentioned, our career pathway work really focuses always on what are those needs of the employers? What skills are you looking to develop or currently developing in your employees? And when you look at the components of registered apprenticeship, it really gives you a clear roadmap to be able to develop those skills in a way that can be sustainable. The parts of the apprenticeship that we're looking at here certainly require that there's on-the-job training. An apprenticeship typically requires a minimum of 2,000 hours, and that can be time-based. It could also be competency-based, depending on what application is best for your work site. The job-related or related instruction, classroom instruction, or academic instruction is typically 144 hours a year. And again, that can be structured differently depending on your workforce needs. The the benefit really when we're thinking about how to market this to potential applicants is also in the fact that they could see a clear wage progression as you're defining the skills that your employees will be learning through an apprenticeship. You're also determining how those wage progression are tied to the skills, and also that there'll be an industry recognized credential at the end of the apprenticeship, and often all throughout there can be what we call interim credentials. So it can be a very clear process for both the employer and the employee to understand how this relationship in employment through apprenticeship could benefit both. So when we think about who's involved in an apprenticeship, there's some different roles. And again, depending on your needs, this could look a little bit different. Typically, there's a program sponsor, and the responsibility for the sponsor is to administer the program, doing the paperwork, tracking hours, the related instruction as well. And this can be the employer. It could be another entity depending on need. And when we look at the employer column, of course, the employer is providing that on-the-job training. Often an employer can also be the program sponsor, or a sponsor could be a group of employers, a foundation, an association. And then the technical instruction piece, again, depending on the need, can be someone at the employer, perhaps a subject matter expert or a journey level worker. Could be through a community college, a joint apprenticeship training committee, as we see often working in the trades, or another entity, just depending on who has the knowledge base for the skills that you're looking for your apprentices to learn. And when we think about creating and launching an apprenticeship, I think the really important thing to know is that there is help available throughout all of these steps. The Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry has staff that are specifically there to help employers starting and all throughout the conversation and creation of apprenticeship programs. They would start by reviewing the job that you would like to make apprenticeable, and determining what the potential wage scale would be, what sort of training would be needed, really identifying the safety training as well that would go along with the related instruction. They would help you develop your on-the-job training process and make sure that you're connecting to appropriate related training providers. The 30-minute phone call could be certainly a progression of communication as you're going throughout this process, and with the goal being to an employer confirming their registered apprenticeship standards. And the goal is then to have a plan for launch within 30 days, where you would have at least one apprentice ready to start this process. And then there is a structure for scheduled check-ins to make sure that all of the pieces are working as planned. And the benefit as well of working with the Department of Labor and Industry, as well as the career force system, is expanding the hiring pipeline by helping to get the word out about your role as part of a registered apprenticeship program that potential employees could learn about through the Minnesota Apprenticeship website, and as well as the career force locations. Our next slide. So we wanted to just share, who is currently using this model in manufacturing. I think apprenticeship is very well known, again, in the building trades, but we're really seeing applications in a lot of different occupational areas, manufacturing being one of them. So these are from the Minnesota Apprenticeship website. You'll see here in Duluth, we have Aero Design or Aerostitch, as currently has a manufacturing apprenticeship in sewing machine repair. And in our region, L&M Radiator has a welding and machining apprenticeship currently. And there are several not on the list. We know that Elite Minnesota Power has several apprenticeship programs, and that there are a lot of employers starting that conversation about developing one. Next slide. So why think about apprenticeship? As we are looking at that skill kind of mismatch between the need for continued education, but really what we're hearing from students who are completing high school or those younger people in the workforce is that they're looking for alternatives to the standardized college process. And I think that, as competition for workers increases, apprenticeship is a really attractive way to communicate to potential employees an employer's dedication to growing and developing their workforce. We know that it levels the playing field. If the instruction is happening on the job, especially through the work, earn, learn model that apprenticeship uses, it really can create that career pathway for a broader base of potential employees versus requiring a high school, post-high school certification on the front end. The hope is that as you're developing the registered apprenticeship, a benefit is that you're standardizing and structuring your training program. It really can help both with increasing productivity, profitability, and capturing that knowledge of your existing workforce. We know that succession planning is something that often employers can struggle with, especially when you're busy. And the apprenticeship model that really uses mentorship as a basis can be a great way to capture that knowledge and make sure that the continuation of knowledge and experience is happening in your workforce. And as we are able to show potential employees a clear progression of wages and credentials through apprenticeship, it can really increase retention and employee engagement by showing that the employer is investing in the employee, which really can encourage the employee to feel seen and important to that employer, and hopefully to have longevity in that role. We hope to be a partner in this as well. We know that through the statewide cohort that we are a part of and other resources potentially available federally and statewide to launch and develop apprenticeship, now is a really great time to be starting this conversation and to be looking at apprenticeship as a possible model for your employees. And this goes along clearly with the benefits for workers as well. The chance to start working while you're earning money, you're also gaining credentials and skills. Certainly, we know that employees are looking for ways to grow that might help them avoid student debt. Or really working families, this is a great model as well for those individuals who want to be working, need to be working, and possibly stepping away from work to start a school program just doesn't fit. The message we're hearing from both students and employers as well is a desire to have a clear pathway from that school to career transition. An apprenticeship can fit really well within that. And of course, through apprenticeship, the workers are also earning those industry recognized credentials. So it's not an alternative to college that doesn't provide a marketable skill set as well as documented and potentially portable credentials. And then the long-term career progression, we know, and having that wage progression chart to be able to show the earning potential of being part of an apprenticeship is a great benefit for workers and recruiting tool for employers. I'll turn it back to you, Elena.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk through just a few myths about apprenticeship. These are things that we often hear as employers are considering it. Number one is the myth that registered apprenticeship programs are only for the construction trades, and that's not true. There are already existing programs in many sectors. Betsy showed a slide with just a list of programs just for manufacturing in Minnesota. There's healthcare apprenticeships. We work quite a bit with a local healthcare employer that has a nursing apprenticeship program, a medical assistant apprenticeship program, and is looking to expand to others. There's a growing number of apprenticeship programs in IT. There's even a few for teachers in Minnesota, and then agriculture is another one that's looking into it. So apprenticeship is a model that can be significantly expanded across many, many industries. Another myth is that choosing apprenticeship means it's an either or choice, college or apprenticeship. And the reality is that related technical instruction can be and often is provided by a college for college credit and leads to a certificate or a degree from that college. And, you know, sometimes that's a one-year certificate or a two-year associate's degree. Sometimes, like in the case of a teaching apprenticeship, it's still a four-year bachelor's degree in education as well as a teaching license. So it doesn't mean that it's either or, it's just a different path to college and one that doesn't require quite as much outlay for tuition as just a more traditional path into college. Another myth is that apprenticeship is only for large companies that have the human resources capacity to sort of do the administrative work of sponsoring an apprenticeship. And the reality is that employers of all sizes can handle apprenticeships. You know, you can have one person per year go through an apprenticeship program, or you can have 100. It just depends on what the needs of the employer are. Groups of employers in similar industries with similar workforce needs can also group together and create an apprenticeship program that crosses multiple places of employment. So that's an option as well. There's a lot of fear that creating an apprenticeship will mean the employer invests all this time and energy and resources into training an employee, and then they'll leave. But there's actually been a lot of research on this, that registered apprenticeship programs help reduce turnover and increase productivity, because you're resulting with employees who are more skilled and therefore able to be more productive at work, and they're more loyal to the company because they're being invested in. And finally, there's a fear that signing up for registered apprenticeship means you're agreeing to being a union shop. And while, of course, some programs do involve unions, that is absolutely not a requirement. And particularly for non-construction apprenticeships, they very often take place at companies that don't have union involvement. So, so we wanted to share a little bit of information with you about apprenticeship, hopefully get you curious and interested in learning more. If this is something you want to get involved with, I know some of you are located in other parts of the state. So if you're in Duluth or Northeast Minnesota, you can reach out to myself or Betsy. We are going to be continuing to do these sort of intro to apprenticeship conversations in a lot of different venues. And then our goal is to identify a group of employers who are really genuinely interested in pursuing launch of an apprenticeship program, and to bring them together for some more intensive and detailed training on exactly how to do it that involves the Department of Labor and Industry, and then really just help make it happen. You can also participate. The Duluth Workforce Board hosts a manufacturing working group, and that's a great place to just bring together education, community organizations and workforce development partners and employers all together to kind of talk, share ideas, talk about various workforce pipeline strategies. And then if you're located in other parts of the state and you're interested, you can also reach out to Betsy and I, and we can connect you to the workforce entity closest to you that's part of this technical assistance cohort that we're involved with. So your call to action is to get involved and learn a little bit more. If you are not an employer, we need your help spreading the word to the employers that you engage with, that this is a strategy that they might consider. It is a strategy to help address their workforce challenges, and the time is now, because there's a real push nationally to expand apprenticeship opportunities, particularly in manufacturing. So with that, we will open it up for questions. So you can raise your hand, you can put your question in the chat. What do you want to know about apprenticeship or any of the things that we shared? Or other question, do you know of any good examples of apprenticeship programs with manufacturers that we should know about? Part of what we're doing is researching other apprenticeship programs to understand how they work, how they're set up, how they're funded, who the partners are. So what do you want to know?
Elena, I have a question. Just with all the kind of turmoil going on in the economy and everything, I've had a couple recruits that aren't able to get back into some certain areas in the union because they're slowing down. They've been kind of put on the bench. Do you see like any change in that? And is there any advice that you would have for me to pass on to recruits to how to kind of hang tight and stay tough and that kind of a I'm just trying to figure out a way to stay positive and keep them positive anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Aaron. It's definitely an uncertain time. I would say on the construction side, I just had a meeting yesterday with the county to talk about housing construction that's in the works. I know Rachel's involved with that. So there's a lot of construction work coming. Some of it is non-union on the residential side, and some of it is union construction work more on the commercial and multifamily side. So it's coming, maybe a little bit of a slower start than in a normal year, but things should be ramping up. On the manufacturing side, I haven't heard, I think there's a lot of fear and nervousness, but overall, I ask this question every time the manufacturing working groups comes together. And so far, folks are doing okay, not seeing a big impact yet, and kind of hoping for the best. And certainly, the intent of some of the moves at the federal level is to build up manufacturing in the United States. And so, ultimately there's potential for a big expansion of manufacturing jobs. But what I do know is that some of our local companies are pursuing expansion as we speak and adding jobs. And so there will be some opportunities locally.
Thank you.
Yeah. Tavia, yes, I believe the presentation will be sent out afterwards, and there will be a recording as well. Yes. Barriers. Okay, so Rachel is curious about the barriers for employers to establish apprenticeship. I think some of it is just not knowing where to start, or not having the staff capacity to sort of invest in creating the program. That's where we come in, and we're really trying to put ourselves out there to provide some of that support and technical assistance on the ground, particularly for companies that don't have the capacity to do it themselves. Maybe they're a smaller manufacturer. I think another barrier is not having a good related technical instruction partner. And I know we are talking a lot with Lake Superior College has been involved with this technical assistance cohort, and they're very interested in seeing how they can be a partner in apprenticeship for manufacturing. And, there's others around the state. So I think community and technical colleges are seeing apprenticeship and being that technical instruction partner for apprenticeship as a venue for them to expand their work without needing to, in a non-traditional way or in a different way beyond just sort of your traditional college student. Yeah, and then Betsy, go ahead. Did you want to add something?
I was just going to add, I think one perceived concern is the size needed of an apprenticeship. And I think that's one thing that's been interesting to learn about employers that maybe just have one apprenticeable role, that they really see the model working for that mentorship, that internal training as the way to really get that role skilled in the way that they want. And so I think it's maybe just taking a look at the roles that you have and how people have historically learned them. And if the learning has been on the job, typically, then that could be a great position that would be a fit for apprenticeship.
Yeah, and also know that, part of the benefit of registered apprenticeship is there's a certain level of standardization nationwide. So there's essentially a massive database of apprenticeship programs. So if you want to create an apprenticeship for a machinist, for example, you just type in machinist into this database. You can see apprenticeship structures that have been built in other places for a machinist and adapt that to kind of your local, whatever it is that you're manufacturing and your local needs. But you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So that's really, really helpful. And that's, again, where the Department of Labor and Industry and the local technical assistance providers are excellent resources to help with that piece. And then the other thing for folks to know is that, as part of its work to expand apprenticeship, Minnesota offers some grants, some startup grants to employers. Ultimately, to maintain a registered apprenticeship program, there needs to be a sustainable funding strategy. But an employer can access grant funding to get the apprenticeship program off the ground, and get it running and humming until it can sustain itself. And so now is the time, because there's that resource available as well. And then Celia, you're wondering, for areas without a local college, what resources to direct them to. So you can provide the related technical instruction in-house. So if you've got an expert on site that would be able to provide that instruction, that's one opportunity. Or someone, sort of a local expert that you can contract with to provide that instruction. There's also a lot of employers do the online training for the related technical instruction, and then the hands-on, the 2,000 hours of hands-on instruction takes place in the workplace. And so that's, we've seen that, like that healthcare employer I was talking about, one of the areas that they want to create an apprenticeship program for, there isn't a local college program for that skill set. So they have an online training provider that they're working with for the classroom portion of the instruction. So that's perfectly okay too. And sometimes works out well for the individual, the apprentice, to do their classroom work online and independently. And then the program management support, that is one of the areas Department of Labor and Industry can help. Essentially, as the apprenticeship sponsor, a big part of the work is data entry. There's this national database you're entering information into to say that this individual is an apprentice in, a specific apprenticeship program. And then you track their hours as they complete the different stages of their apprenticeship. You track it in this database system so that the individual, that's what helps make the apprenticeship portable for the individual, so that it's something that's industry recognized and portable. It's learning a software system. We've all had to learn software systems for our jobs. So you just learn that system, and then the data entry, there's some tips and tricks to try to make it efficient. And Department of Labor and Industry absolutely will help provide technical assistance for that. Thanks for those questions. Any other questions from folks? Things you want to know? Does this sound like something that you or an employer might be interested in pursuing? It also works in the public sector. So cities, counties can all have apprenticeship programs. There's some great models of apprenticeship programs for like public works, for example. Yes, awareness campaign. So that's a part of the work as well. I think folks who want to enter the construction trades have a little bit more of an understanding of apprenticeship, because that's sort of essential to the construction sector. But people aren't aware that apprenticeship exists, or what it looks like, or what it means in manufacturing, healthcare, and other sectors. So absolutely, that is part of the work that we hope to pursue, is working in the high schools. We already work in the high schools, but bringing more information to the high schools, both to students and counselors and teachers and parents, about apprenticeship as a pathway, a post-secondary pathway, and then also to job seekers. And we see a lot of job seekers who want a better job, know that they need training, but just cannot stop working to go to college and earn a degree. And so would be very interested in a training pathway that allows them to keep working and earning income so they can support their family while gaining skills that are going to help them advance in their career. So that is absolutely a role that we can and will play, is to help educate. What else? What other questions do y'all have?
I've got another question. I'll just speak it.
Go for it.
I'm wondering, you had that nice list of companies around the state, and a couple of them local that that do have the program. I think maybe part of it too could be having some case studies where maybe those employers would be willing to just and maybe we collaborate on this and we can host a opportunity to invite employers that are considering an apprenticeship or just want to even just have that put that first toe in to hear firsthand how did it get established, how was it improved the workforce development and the hiring and the retention, and having that opportunity to speak with someone who has established an apprenticeship program as a way to kind of convert this opportunity and get it a little further down the path.
100%. Yep, absolutely. I agree with you completely. And that would be part of our intent if we pulled together an in-person training opportunity for employers that are interested in pursuing an apprenticeship. That is absolutely part of it. Some case studies.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the testimonials and talking through the specific questions.
Agreed. Yeah. All right.
Elena, if they're a small business, let's say maybe like 3 to 5 workers on their payroll, would they be able to access to get funding for that to be possibly a lead in that for apprenticeship?
Yeah, the size of the business doesn't matter. It's more having the capacity to provide that on the job training. But as long as the company is able to do that, there is a path. So, and that's exactly what we could help the company figure out, is kind of map that out. What would it take in terms of capacity to support an apprenticeship? And what kind of assistance would they need being a small employer? But yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
There's a really good question in the chat, Elena,
Yeah.
about employers based in areas without a local college. And with us up here in Northeast Minnesota and having a lot of rural employers that kind of have that. And we also have the history of some educational partners that don't necessarily want to play ball all the time. So what recommendations have we come across or seen to help employers direct them towards technical instruction or program management support to help them develop?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Online training programs. There's lots of really good online training out there that can provide that classroom instruction. And so that's what I've seen employers do, is tap into online training. Or it doesn't have to be a college that's the partner. It can be an expert in the field who's able to do that training. And then program management support, same thing. That could be through an industry association. It could be through, an apprenticeship intermediary, which is what we're working towards becoming, or a Department of Labor and Industry is available to provide support as well. Great. Other questions? All right, well, if there's no other questions, we can end there and give you back a little bit of time. So you want to talk about what comes next and the follow-up from this?
I will be sending out the video to all of you, and I will maybe get the PowerPoint presentation and attach that. And we just really thank you guys for attending and such great questions. We will, I invite you to check out the MMA events page to join us for additional webinars. We have them 3 a month, and we will be taking a break over summer, but we'll pick back up in September. So from there, I think I'm good. Anything else?
Just thank you, everyone, for the opportunity.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for the opportunity. We hope that this kind of sparked some interest and please really think about it. We are, we want Northeast Minnesota and Minnesota in general to lead on apprenticeship. So we want to help with that however we can. So thank you so much for the opportunity and reach out with any questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.